Pocket 3 definitely has capabilities to create some very cinematic shots. I want to show you exactly how I did that in my latest video. So let's take this first shot, for example, which was just a simple me pulling the camera away from the window on the plane. Let me show you exactly what it looked like straight out of camera. So the only thing that I added to this footage is the plugin, which is called the Custom LUT. And if you have Final Cut Pro 10, you should have this in your effects tab. It's just called the Custom LUT, which I have applied here. And I have a LUT pack. It's called the Impulse LUTs from Vision Color. I will drop a link down in the description box below so you can check those out. But these LUTs are kind of a film emulation from like old film cameras that kind of give this rich, authentic feel to the digital footage. It gives this analog look to your footage. And so I chose the Log Fuji Color Superior 200 LUT, and I applied this to the footage, and then I also scaled it down to about 60%. So let me just restart this. So if I was to apply this from scratch, I would come up here to my LUTs. It is the log version of it. And so I chose the Fuji Superior 200, and immediately the LUT basically changes the way that the colors looked, but I wanted to dial it back just a little bit. So I brought the mix down, like I said, to about 62%. And you can see the before and after with that. Now the next shot that I want to show is this one of the plane in the air. It's shooting the wing. And so this is what it looks like right now with some of the adjustments, but I want to show you what it looked like before. You can tell right off of the bat, this is way too bright. This is overexposed and frankly just not usable. Now at the time of this recording, when I was recording this, I did not have any ND filters or any type of filter that could help reduce the exposure going into the camera. And so with the 10-bit, I was definitely testing and pushing the limits of this footage because I really needed to decrease the exposure on here. So a couple things that I did, I first applied just the balance color, which is a standard setting inside of Final Cut Pro. It basically is like its way of automatically trying to expose the footage and automatically white balance it. And I found that it actually did a decent job of kind of reducing the exposure just a little bit so that it wasn't so bright. In addition to the color balance, I also added another color board setting just to further reduce the exposure. And so if you add that in here, basically I reduced the midtones so that some of these grays weren't so gray and white. And so you could see that that kind of balanced out the exposure just a little bit more. I didn't even add a LUT to this particular clip. However, I certainly could. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. We can use that same Fuji Superior 200. And you can see that that adds some more color to this footage, and I'll scale it back probably to about 85%. And so let's look at the before and after. So here's clip number 3 that I want to show. So here is the before, and then here is the after. So I will say that this is still very subtle. I mean, there's not a ton that we're doing to push these colors and these clips, but just with some of the subtle changes that we're making with the LUT and even just the color board makes a big difference. So if I disable each one of these 2 steps, the first thing that I did was I applied the LUT. And so that gives it just a little bit more life and more color. I think right off of the bat, this looks pretty cinematic, if you ask me, but obviously there can be more that's done to this clip. So then I also added a color board just to add in a little bit more saturation to this clip so that my skin tones, my shirt would have a little bit more color and vibrance. So let me apply that. And so again, very, very subtle. Let me just take it off again and then back on. It's very subtle, but I think it adds a little bit more richness to the clip. And this is also using that same Fuji Superior 200 LUT. Oftentimes when I find a LUT that works for a lot of the shots that I recorded in a particular scene or environment or at a typical location, I usually will repeat that same LUT with those same style of shots in the same environment. So a lot of the ones that I recorded here on the plane, on this trip, I used that Fuji 200 LUT. Now this clip here is one of the plane landing. This is before, and you could tell that it's kind of gray. It doesn't have a ton of life, looks a little lifeless. Still pretty good quality, but as far as the colors and the way that it pops out, it's just missing some of that. So all I did on this one was a balance color and I applied the LUT. And so here I've enabled just the LUT alone. And so let me take it off again and then back on. You can see that it adds some color. It gives it a little bit more life. And then I also added the automatic balance color, which also acts as a white balance. And so this shot right here, if you were on the plane in real life looking, this is what it looked like. Like this is a better representation of what the actual colors look like in real life on that day. So that's kind of why I went with these particular settings for this clip. And this clip right here was of us coming down the escalator, and all I did was apply that Fuji Superior 200 LUT, and I did scale it back to about 86%. So if this is what it looked like when it's just straight out of camera, which again is just crazy to me that the footage looks like this straight out of camera. In my opinion, it looks pretty good, but it needs a little bit more contrast and saturation. And that's essentially what this LUT does when applied. So I applied the Fuji Superior LUT, I dialed it back just a little bit, and this is the result that we get. If you had not had a chance to check out the full video, I will put it right here so you can check it out. Also, if you want to see more videos from the DJI Osmo Pocket 3, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, and I will be sure to drop some more content using this camera. I can't tell you how much I love using it. Thanks so much for watching this one, and I will see you in the next video.